What's happening, guys? We are live here on a Sunday afternoon. I appreciate you guys coming out, and good to see a few people here early. The usual suspects: Donna Lembo, Victorine. See some new faces here that I'm not familiar with, but that doesn't mean you're not here. Saw Eyes on Heaven posted earlier, but
that doesn't mean you're not here.
Give people a minute to kind of filter in here. Hopefully everybody's having a good weekend. I've had a good weekend. I went to a fancy dinner on Friday. I felt like somebody in a movie or something. It was really weird. There was like ballroom dancing going on and fancy foods and stuff, and I was just trying to do everything I could not embarrass my wife. So that worked out good. It was for her work, so I was trying to do everything I could not to embarrass her. I kept kidding her, saying that they wanted me to get up there and speak for a little bit on Idaho 4 maybe or something, but she quickly told me no. So, but yeah, it was cool. Something I'd never done before. And then last night went over to my buddy Chris's house. Him and his girlfriend. Chris is the guy I do the podcast with, Chris Shawback. He and I started the podcast in 2017, 2018, Murder Metal Mayhem, April of 2018. And that's been on hold since all this stuff started with me at the end of May last year. But going to be starting it back. The plan originally was late April, which would be our 8th year, our anniversary of 8 years, obviously with a little interruption. But because of my eyes, I just couldn't imagine putting more workload on myself already at this point. I can't really do much in the way of thumbnails or anything like that in the daytime, unless somebody's here to help me, because I can't see. So I'm trying to find file names, and like I save all my graphics in different folders. So to be able to go back and forth from folder to folder and calling up Dylan and Ethan and all these other names and stuff, it just makes it really difficult to do without somebody to help me. So I've been trying to do those at night so that the next day they're ready, but it doesn't always work out that way. But this surgery can't come soon enough. I sure hope they call me with somebody, cancels or something, and I can get in there sooner, but it's been rough. So the cataracts is a real thing. But I don't want to stop if I can keep it going. So I'm keeping it going. Thankfully, my wife, the beautiful Jenny, she was able to help me get the thumbnail up today for this live, because I was trying to do it and something got fouled up, and then the file was too big and YouTube wouldn't take it. So short of me throwing my laptop across the room, she saved the day and fixed it, and it's all good. But normally I like to give you guys more heads up on when I'm going to do these, but it didn't work out like I had planned. So, but thanks to my wife, we were able to pull it through. And the members only also I did that one, but that one for some reason got through. It was the one for this live that didn't want to be cooperating with me. So, okay, we got a good question right out of the box here from Jacob. Got Christina Bowling, says she's loving the channel. So anybody that's new to one of my lives, I'm using my phone to read the comments because I can't read them on my computer screen. They're like ridiculously small and I can't make them bigger. Plus I have the blackout version of it on my phone, so it shows up fine. I can see it on white on black. So I'm going to call out people for their comments, but unfortunately, I won't be able to put all of them on the screen. I know people like to see their name in the lights, but unfortunately, I can't do it. unless it's a super chat, because they highlight those for me. Those I can see and at least put them on the screen. But first things first. So Jacob Monster 999. I like that name there, Jacob. So Jacob has a question. He says, Pete, do you believe that BK really tried to clean up the crime scene? In my opinion, I don't think he would risk not knowing who could be in that house. That's a good question. I mean, the whole cleaning up the crime scene just seems so strange to me, you know. And again, we're talking Idaho 4. So I mean, that's like the dictionary definition of strange should be, if you look up in the dictionary what strange is, it should just be the zip code for Moscow, Idaho. It's just that. Don't even say the word Moscow, just put the zip code in there, or longitude, latitude, or something, because they're whack over there. But it's a strange case. And so I've been dealing with true crime for over 40 years. Started with the Son of Sam and has been rolling through. I see one's highlighted here, but I can't read it. Let me put it on the screen for a second. And $2 super chat. Thank you very much. That's Beverly Hassel. I appreciate that, Beverly. Very nice of you. So yeah, I mean, I just really, really struggle with everything going on, and it's just so crazy to try to keep it all straight. You know, it really is. And like a lot of us find, the further you go into this case, the more it seems like you uncover one thing and you find three more, you know. But getting back to his question about, would Brian have cleaned up? I mean, I've never seen anybody clean up a crime scene, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I'm trying to think of one. I mean, sure, there's been some half-assed ones, like that usually is the case with a crime scene cleanup. I mean, they show it in the movies, right? Or when you watch like 24 or those kind of shows, they show like this cleanup expert that comes in and does it where you can't tell, it's like Surf Pro, like they never were there. But I don't know how much truth is in that. I mean, I've never called upon someone to do such a service for me, so I don't know. But maybe they're real. I don't know. But if they are, I mean, they're sure not like just growing on trees, We got another one highlighted here. Let's see, Beverly, $2 again. Thank you very much, Beverly. I think that's a second one, so thank you. But I don't know why you would clean up the crime scene. To me, it just leaves you more vulnerable to get caught, because science the way it is, with them being able to figure stuff out the way they do nowadays. I think that's why we're out of what author Peter Vronsky. I've done interviews with Peter Vronsky. He's amazing, but he's blown open that Richard Cottingham case. If you're familiar with the guy in Times Square, sometimes known as the Times Square torso killer, but he was pretty gruesome. His name is Richard Cottingham, but he's in Jersey, in prison in New Jersey for a murder there. But Peter Vronsky's done amazing work blowing open other cases that Vronsky did all the way going into the 60s. So they've given a lot of closure to families. But Peter's a really good dude. He's up in Canada, and he's written several definitive books on serial murder. And one that's my favorite one, he gets into what he calls the golden age of the serial killer, which would have been like the 70s and early to mid 80s. And then after that, you had science getting in the way, right? So you got all these, like OJ with the first we had ever seen like DNA in a courtroom like that. Of course, that's a bad case to use because it was the biggest travesty of justice I think I've ever seen in my life. short of Delphi maybe, but the other way around. But with the beginnings of DNA and crime scene work, I mean that's tough to refute, as we see here in this case. No matter how many times you tell people, I've done video after video after video, and I'm not the only one. I know there's several that have done them, that have said that evidence there at the crime scene on that knife sheath is not the DNA you're thinking it is. This is not bodily fluid. This is skin cells, okay? Those skin cells could have been easily planted there. We all know this, okay? We're dealing with a very suspect police force. The investigators, I mean, there's more people with bad backstories in this saga than I've ever seen in my life. And I've told you before, I'm a writer, and I couldn't even imagine writing a story this crazy and having people take it seriously. Like, if I actually created a story with this level of just weirdness going on, people would say that's just absurd. You can't, nobody's going to believe it, So it's just that over the top. It's just crazy. But I don't see Brian cleaning this up. I don't see anybody cleaning this up, but I think they did. I mean, they really would have had to if there's only a couple or three sources of unknown DNA in the house, and then the issue with Maddie's fingernails. I mean, in a house like that with all the partying going on, and if you looked at that picture of the kitchen from outside where it shows the fast food bags and stuff, that house doesn't look like, was getting like regularly cleaned. You know what I mean? That was not happening. It's a party house, There's all sorts of nonsense going on in there. So with that many people in and out of a house like that, where you're not having like somebody come through and clean like professionally, there's going to be DNA all over that house. That's why I don't understand how they were able to clear all these people so fast and why they only found that many. I mean, to me, the lack of DNA on that scene would be more of a red flag than if they found a whole bunch, right? Because if you're cleaning it up, then chances are that you're cleaning it to cover up something, whether it be for you or somebody paying you to do it. You're not just going to go in there and clean up something like that without a reason. I mean, there's no reason to go in there and clean it up if the guy or gal who did this went in there with like a Dickies type pullover coveralls on and gloves and boots and had everything completely covered. But I would think even goggles on your eyes, I wouldn't even have any bit of skin showing if I was doing something like this. And then would be very rare to leave something behind if it's all covered like that. But to go in there and do it similar or like that, and then have somebody come through and clean after, it seems like overkill, for lack of a better pun. But it's what appears to have happened, because as I've said, I don't understand how you get from she's lying on the floor unconscious at 12 o'clock, and then you fast forward almost 6 hours till Kathy Mabbitt decides to stroll in there and start doing her coroner work. So you got almost 6 hours has elapsed. And if you look back at when they claimed the crimes happened, it'd be over 12 hours. So the accuracy of whatever information she's gathering is going to be diminished because you're going in that much later. And if doors were open, like we know they were, and they messed with the heat, as I've said before, they lowered it or raised it, it's going to change body temperatures, and that's going to mess with the coroner. All these things contribute, So I just don't know how accurate she was. But her first indication was 2 o'clock, 2 to 3 o'clock, which is what I think was the case with Xana and Ethan. I think they were hit first. And I think Kaylee and Maddie heard what was going on downstairs, and that's why they were frantically trying to call Jack. Now, did Jack not get the messages or the missed calls, whatever? He said he was sleeping. I mean, that's what most people would be doing at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, right? But I just want to know, why is everybody else okay with these shaky alibis at best? But Brian Koberger, for some reason, has to have accountability of him driving around at night. I don't know what kind of accountability you expect him to have, if he's out at this Waiway Park in Washington State. I mean, there's probably no cameras around, or if there is, there's very few. I mean, what interaction would you have at that hour of the night with people? You probably wouldn't. You might see a bear or some sort of animals or something, but you're not going to see people typically. So I just don't know why his alibi is any worse than the Showalter. Drove 5 hours to his parents' hunting cabin or other nonsense that is. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. And if he did, let's see some proof. Let's see some proof of that. I looked at the map. There's a whole bunch of gas stations between there and Boise. That guy would have stopped at least once, maybe more than once. Let's get some of those videos out. Let's see, did he really make that trip? Or was he somewhere else he would rather not talk about? I don't know. I've got my suspicions about Jack Showalter, and one of them that just recently came up is, I know I've talked about the 4chan posts a lot. Some people are really into the 4chan stuff and some aren't. I think they're very, very telling. But, we know that the 4chan posts were potentially written with someone's, UK influence, because there's some English slang used in those posts, like the word, I won't say it because it's offensive to most people, the C word, 4-letter word, derogatory term for a woman here in the United States. Over there in the UK, they say it like it's like dude, they're just throwing it around. Guys, it doesn't matter, So it's totally different vibe, okay? But here we don't say that word without being, considered offensive. So it is what it is. But kind of odd that he used that word repeatedly in those posts. Then there was another one, freshers for freshmen. Some of the other nicknames that were used in there, it did that. So, now we know that Jack Showalter had family in South Africa. South Africa, of course, being UK or English territory or whatever you call it. So I wondered, do they use the same kind of slang down there? Because if that's the case, then maybe that's your 4chan poster. To be honest with you, the 4chan guy really knew a lot about those people, knew a lot about the Sigma Chi guys, but didn't necessarily say that they were Sigma Chi. So, and Jack was not. So I don't know. I'm not sitting here to accuse anybody. Everything is alleged, of course, but it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. So here, Ginger Peoples, hinging off of what I just said Jack Showalter posted on 4chan back in 2023. Interesting. He was supposedly watching over the girls, but stated that Maddie and Kaylee ran off to the private driver and he couldn't stop them. Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for chiming in there. That was well timed. I saw it just as you typed it. It worked out well you know, for those girls probably getting away from him, not so well after that, that don't know what his connection is to this. What did he do after that? You know, did he take off and go to Boise? I don't know. Maybe he did, you know. Some say he got on a plane and went to Africa. You know, I've heard that rumor too. And his family and friends have come on. I know that said that that was not true. But the fact that he went on 4chan in 2023 is kind of interesting, because if he used that platform then, you know, then he might have been more prone to make those posts before, you know. I don't know. Those posts were made almost a month to the day of when the crimes happened. So December 12th is when they started. There was others. People debate whether it was the same person, but there's some key parts of that 4chan post, one of which I'm going to be doing a video here later after I'm done with this live stuff. So you'll see it at some point tonight, but it has to do with the Banfield. And the Banfield and the 4chan stuff kind of wind together. So speaking of some parts of 4chan that show up in the Banfield, like the infamous quote where it says it took 19 minutes, and that includes the walk. Well, if you watch the Banfield video, which, as you know, the Banfield separates Sigma Chi from the King Road house, that video starts at 2 or 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:54 a.m. is when that video starts. Remember, 19 minutes. What's 19 minutes added to 2:54? That's 3:13. And if you watch the video to the end, you see right at 3:12, you see 4 people on the horizon run right past. You see their head, the silhouette of their heads running in unison right past. That's 3:12. Give them about another minute, they'd have been at Sigma Chi. So there you go. There's your 19 minutes. Now you tell me that that's just happenstance. You tell me that that's just how it happened. That's just how it happened. These 2 cops are in black plain clothes with an undercover car, supposedly doing interference for underage drinking, which is ridiculous, to be doing it in black like ninja outfits. So I think that they were somehow intertwined with this, maybe on the lookout, maybe making sure nobody was going to come disrupt the plan, you know, that kind of thing. Very possible. I mean, it would make sense if you were going to do a job like that. You'd want to make sure you weren't going to have somebody just show up, like some party goer thinking that there's a party that night, just going to show up with a 12-pack and walk into that mess, you know. So that may be what they were doing there, and there may have been more of them. There were just those 2 on the Banfield, but there could have been other officers in other parts surrounding this place, really keeping a good eye on it. I don't know. Just makes you wonder, right? So here's an opposing viewpoint. I'm not opposed to posting or mentioning those that oppose us. Here's one from Max Smith, who says the 4chans were made around December 12th. It carries 0 credibility. Well, I would agree with you, Max. I mean, the fact that it's anonymous means that it could have been, you know, somebody who just got drunk one night and thought it'd be fun to mess with people. But here's what I'm going to say about the 4chan posts. You're right about December 12th. So the fact that this person posted all this information in those posts before it was known to any of us means that they had some intimate knowledge of the people that did that, or the people that we think may have been involved in that. Knew Ethan's nickname, knew David Loach's nickname, knew David Baracoa's nickname, knew that David Baracoa's dad at one point owned a professional cleaning business. How in the world would somebody know that? Unless they knew them. And the fact that these two had this murder fantasy since they were in high school together in Boise, all of that stuff, short of what I just told you, because that is hearsay. I don't know that for a fact. But the other stuff, nicknames and all this, these are things that are true. But this person knew that on December 12th, long before we even knew who Brian Koberger was. So I don't know. But Max, you're entitled to your opinion. Appreciate you voicing it in a civil way. So you get some New York sports fans in here. Of course, I started that telling Donna that I tried to time this game right today with the Yankee game, but the Yankee game doubleheader, I got it right with the first game, but now the second game has started or starting, and I'll miss that one or some of it. Okay, and here Christina says that Christina Bowling says, hey, I think Dylan holds the key. Well, I would agree with that. I would agree with that big time, because there's so much of this now hinging on her. And what's funny is, back when this all first started, for me at least, would have been not this December, but the December before, when I started the channel. And I was not familiar with this case. I just came off the Murdoch case. I thought the Murdoch case was crazy. This one is like hold my beer crazy. But coming off of the Murdoch case, I was really kind of trying to learn as much as I could about it. And Dylan just kept throwing, these red flags up to me. And in my earliest video, I think the first video I ever did on the Idaho 4 had her picture on it and said, I think that she's somehow tied into this, because this is just really weird, And anytime you post anything about Dylan and Bethany, you get a little bit of the hate. You get a little bit of it. And it is what it is. I get it, But I mean, you can't help but call it out when you see it. I mean, it's really ridiculous, from claiming she was in a frozen shock phase, which we all knew that was a bunch of nonsense. And then they start dripping the text evidence, which is just beyond the pale. I mean, how you could be engaged in a text conversation with somebody in a house where 4 people are being massacred is beyond me. It just is. I don't know how a human being even does that. Where do you get that kind of level of just craziness? That's just unbelievable. So, she was. If that's true, that she was there. Now, a lot of people think she wasn't even there. Maybe she set the table and maybe took off, right? Maybe that's why she was calling Eric Goer at 2:10 a.m. asking him if he was still out driving, Maybe, can you come get me and get me the hell out of here, Who knows? We heard Bethany was at some hotel party or something. She was staying with other people at a hotel, so she probably wasn't there. I don't think either of them were there, to be honest with you. I think that's how it happened. I think they got out of it for some reason, but their involvement with it was the getting the house situated where only they would be there, and then letting somebody know when the coast was clear, when they were in bed or in their rooms and lights are going out, and then it's okay, it's a go, and then get the hell out of Dodge because they don't want to be there when it happens. To me, that seems very, very legit of a possible reason of why she would have been spared. Now she's got skin in the game because she's involved. So if she rats on anybody, they all go down together. So, or maybe she's got something even above that. I've wondered if she was a confidential informant or if she was a, something along those lines, was there for those reasons. All right, got a new karma for show or faux show. Welcome to the Horns High Club. So very good, thank you, Karma for show for doing that. Appreciate that. Being a member in the Horns High Club. We got our members only live after this, so you don't want to miss that. And I think this is the same. I'm trying to see if this is the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. Okay. So yeah, so I think I agree with you that Dylan is definitely very, 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 very suspect. No matter which way you look at this case, I mean, honestly, in the best light, she seems like some narcissistic idiot who was worried about Snapchat and Instagram and all that crap instead of calling 911 for her friends. I mean, that's just that doesn't make sense. It's got to be more than that. I mean, that's always the first thing everybody comes to with this case. In my first video, that's how it was how do you explain the 8 hours? That'll be the eternal mystery if that doesn't get solved here in the trial. Is what were you doing for 8 hours? There's a lot of things they could have been doing in 8 hours. And going back to that very first question from Brooks is, was Brian cleaning up? I mean, I guess it's certainly possible he could have known some of these people maybe somehow. I'm just not seeing him working with a group with his disability and with his traits. I don't see him working together in a group. I think he would look at everybody as like beneath him. It wouldn't be knowledgeable like him. And there could be some truth in that. The guy was a whiz, but boy, I mean, if he was a whiz and he did the things that they're saying he did with Amazon and all that stuff, I mean, what an idiot. I mean, talk about book smart and street stupid. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, I've never seen anything so stupid. That's why it seems like a setup. Like somebody of that level knowledge would not do that stuff. I mean, it makes zero sense that he would even dream of doing this and leaving the trail of breadcrumbs behind, like that. It just seems like it, too far-fetched. Too far-fetched. I'm looking here at some of the comments to see what you guys say. Yeah, here Erica Stearns says, what about that latent footprint? So yeah, you got the latent footprint outside Dylan's bedroom, and I think that's evidence that they did clean up, but they missed one. They thought they got it all, but they missed it. I mean, again, going back to 4chan, if the way that person is hinting that they use some sort of professional cleaning equipment, I'm not saying they called in the cleaning service this guy's dad worked for, but if this kid had knowledge of how that stuff worked, or at least hired people that knew how it worked, they could have gone in there and cleaned this thing up. And I know that we doubt a lot of what Dylan has to say, but Dylan had said that, one of her many recollections of this said that the person looked almost like a firefighter and he was holding something looked like a vacuum cleaner. Well, that could have been one of the people there cleaning up, with some sort of handheld cleaning device. I know a lot of them use, they use like misters to mist the air to avoid, or to kill bacteria and different things. So who knows? It could have been something like that, that was going on, that they didn't want to, that's how they cleaned it up. I have no idea. I've never worked for a professional cleaning service, but they would know how to clean stuff like that up. I've done training before for cleaning services that do crime scene cleanup. Now, I've never done crime scene cleanup, but I've done training for companies that also have done that. And I've talked to them about that and what that's like, obviously the gruesome nature of it and all that, but that's a thing, so there's companies that do that, and they come in and they know what they're doing, and they do it right, and they do it safe, and they make sure everybody's protected, and that's really all you can do in a case like that. But it is odd that the guy's got that tie to the professional cleaning service. And then the 4chan post goes on to say that everything from the cleanup and all of the debris and everything all got deposited somewhere in Garden City, Idaho, and that's where one of the Davids lives. And so that's odd. And if you look at a map, there's a river that flows right through that, right next to that town. So, they talked about the Snake River and a way Brian could have got rid of a K-bar knife. Well, if we're gonna go there, then that could have been how those guys got rid of the K-bar knife, or a hatchet, or a machete, or a whole host of other things, because we know it wasn't just one weapon. Now that came out here just the other day. So we got multiple weapons. So everybody's getting all crazy about this K-bar, but I don't think that was the weapon. I don't even know if it was used at all. We've yet to hear anything about the wounds. I mean, let's hear how these wounds were made. Let's hear what kind of weapons could have been used to make wounds like that. Axes and hatchets and things like that. Not knives, especially a knife like that. That's really meant more for like vegetation and hunting and fishing and stuff like that, cutting twine. Not doing that. It's just not meant for that. Now, the Marines used to use them for like close combat stuff, but in a situation like that, you're going to want a stout, heavy knife like that. But going through quick like this person would have had to been moving, I don't see the benefit of a knife like that. I just don't. Let's see here. I see here somebody asked if the law enforcement had checked the drains. You would hope so, because that's part of the crime scene analysis. They're supposed to do that because obviously the attackers could have, thoroughly cleaned up. And that's personally, when you talk about that, I think it's very feasible if these crimes are actually done a little bit earlier than everybody's saying. Whoever did this could have taken a shower there at the house. That would have been very easy to do. There were more than one shower. I think there was one on each floor. So you could have got a few people through those showers pretty fast, and then taken all their clothes and gotten rid of them, and then put on a fresh set of clothes and make sure you really cleaned it out thorough. I don't know. If they didn't check the drains, then that would have been maybe a very feasible way to, catch them if they would have done that. But I don't know that they did. I don't know. Maybe the smarter bet is to just get out of there faster and avoid getting caught and not leaving evidence behind in the shower, like on the shower curtain and all that stuff. So these are all things, I guess, to do something like this, you'd really have to think about hard that's why I don't see this as being a crime that somebody just walked up on and thought, what the hell, let's do it. There's just way too much prior thought here, I think, to this crime, that something like that just doesn't add up to me. I mean, I've covered a ton of true crime on the Murder Metal Mayhem podcast, and any of those ones where they just walk up on a house and just select it out of the blue is usually a bloodbath. I mean, they're not going in there to do anything careful. So the idea of them doing it and then having people come in after and clean it up, unless the two are totally unrelated, and I'm not seeing that happening. But how would they be related? Well, let's say the reason why they cleaned up is because they got looking around the house and their damn footprints are everywhere. Meaning, I'm talking about Dylan and Bethany. Real issue. Now you got your footprints intertwined with all this. Now it's going to look like you did it, you know. So maybe it was that panic that set in, or it was pre-figured out that they were going to go look around and see what all happened. Knew very well what happened when they called 911, and then to make it look like their story fit, which was they just woke up and didn't know what was going on and just all heard people and just screaming and everything else, and then they were oblivious. But we know they weren't, because they were on Snapchat and Instagram and calling parents and calling who else, you know, getting on Indeed and checking on a job resume. I mean, I don't know what that was about. But all these different things they were doing with their phones, I mean, it was anything but just sitting there chilling, and they probably were talking through this. And I think that, you know, Dylan's cover was she was just so drunk. She just didn't know what she was doing. But you guys know as well as I do, if she really drank that stuff that she claimed she drank that night, she'd have been dead. I mean, come on now. I mean, nobody could drink like that. I mean, I've been around bands for most of my adult life, and I've never seen people drink like that. So I'm just not buying it. I'm just not buying it. I mean, 12 White Claws, mimosas in the morning, then a gallon jug of liquor, and then more alcohol and drinking games after it. No, I'm not seeing it. I don't think she was that drunk. I think that was the cover story to show that she couldn't have been involved because she was so hammered she didn't know what was going on. But I think the problem is they're trying to take that person, the one that's so screwed up they couldn't have been involved, and now they're trying to make her their main eyewitness. So how do those two worlds join? How in the world did that judge approve Dylan Mortensen being able to say bushy eyebrows was a legit thing? I mean, seriously. If you knew somebody that, let's say, had been in an accident and had some serious mental disabilities, would you say their eyewitness account would be able to go on a witness stand like that? Probably not. Probably not. So why would somebody that's that inebriated be able to get up on the stand and point the finger at somebody and say, I think you're the guy that I saw in the hallway with the bushy eyebrows? It's totally asinine. It's totally ridiculous. And at that, the bushy eyebrow thing, I mean, what's bushy to one person may not be bushy to another. And I don't know. I think anybody with their face in a balaclava where all you see is their eyes, basically, I think just about anybody would look like they had bushy eyebrows. The way it probably scrunches your face down like that. So I'm just not seeing the bushy eyebrows as a legitimate way to identify a person. I mean, seriously, think about that. I mean, what percentage of the population are we talking about? Like half of the male population could have been in that hallway with the balaclava on? I mean, that's just, I don't understand what that's getting them other than setting her up to be destroyed on cross-examination, because I'll tell you what, I'm definitely going to be watching that. I mean, I'm sure all of us want to see that. They want to see what in the world is she going to say when the questions start coming after her, real questions. I sure hope that that's how it goes down. So here I see a comment from Maria Wood. Oh, I think I might have lost it, Maria. There was something about that Dylan could have passed the cleaners as she was leaving. They were coming in. It's possible. It's sure possible. And that's where I am with the DoorDasher too. Like, I'm having a hard time thinking the DoorDash was just a fluke, that it was being delivered within moments, like 5 minutes of when they claim this all started with Koberger. What are the odds there? I mean, we need to have like a Vegas bookie putting odds on some of this stuff, because I just don't know how many things like this we're expected to believe. That's why I think there's something important about that DoorDash driver. I think they were either there to signify like the beginning, or to say it was over with and it was done. Some sort of role they played. Maybe to confuse the cameras as they were circling the block and pirouetting with their car. Maybe they were fooling cameras into thinking there was this white Elantra. Maybe that was all part of it. Another thing, too, to think about is just because that person that has that DoorDasher or, whatever kind of driver they are, as you all know, if you've ever ordered that kind of stuff before, the person that the app says is coming to bring you your food is not always that person. Sometimes it's a husband, a wife, a friend, a cousin, whatever, riding with them that's helping them out. Also for security reasons, right? So I think that, that could be very possible that, we're just not, because the DoorDash, I believe they said it was a female. That's what the people at the restaurant remembered, a female picking it up, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a male driver. So some have speculated, could it be Eric Goer? Was he the DoorDasher and the private driver both? I guess it's possible. I mean, the documents from the court refer to him as E.G. DoorDash. So I don't know. I mean, they're just throwing out so much information. I can't even figure it out. And that's why I'm needing to take a little bit. If I didn't have so much stuff going on this weekend, I would have been a little bit more up on some of the newest breaking stuff. I watched some of Lana's live last night. That was interesting. I wish I would have been more awake for it, because she was putting out some good info, but I was just so tired from a long day. But I would like to educate myself a little bit more on some of the newer things that are coming out with all these rulings from Hippler that are rolling out, that are all against the defense, every one of them. Here, get a good question from Vega Castro. Says, why didn't anyone see the bodies leave the house? That's a good question. Usually you do. Usually you see all that stuff. Usually you see the crime scene pictures. They'll usually cover up the real bad stuff, but you get to see a lot of it. You also get to see or listen or watch the 911 call. None of that here. I don't understand why this is done with the level of secrecy like Roswell, New Mexico, or like JFK assassination. I don't understand why there's that level of cover up going on here. Because that's what it stinks of, something like that, something real big. And I know we've toyed around with some ideas about that. You know, what else was going on that night or at that time that could have potentially, you know, been at play here? Well, we know that area was a big corridor for narcotics. So that's very possible that they were in play here. You know, somebody did something they shouldn't have done, flushed something down a toilet. Rumors have been spun around. Got somebody mad. They came in and they took care of business. That's certainly very possible. We've heard about Xana's mom and Maddie's mom and having some jaded pasts, some recent trafficking arrests that were somehow, you know, swept under the rug. Normally that means that they turned informant. That gets people a little upset. Oh, it's very possible that that led to this, you know. That's the problem with this, is there's so many things that could have led to this. You know, just like the Sigma Chi party could it have gotten out of hand. And they rolled out of the Sigma Chi house, basically chasing Ethan and Xana back to the house. I guess it's possible. You know, I mean, those guys were a little amped up. We know Loach was all fired up because he had been embarrassed again. And he was sick of Ethan. He didn't like him. They just were like oil and water. And it could have got out of hand. I mean, if you got a bunch of guys drinking like that and doing drugs and all this other stuff they were doing, I mean, allegedly, of course, but that, you know, that's concerning. And there's pictures of them with K-bar knives and all this other nonsense that they had. So did they have to show that they still had their knives? You know, I don't know. How closely were they looked at? All I know is that they were only looked at for 2 or 3 days, and then all of a sudden the police were told to go somewhere else. And then that's when they started with the Koberger stuff. So I don't know. Lots of suspicion there with those people. Lots of suspicion there. But why we didn't see the bodies, I don't know. I mean, there was that tarp up there, so I guess it could have gone on behind the tarp, but it does make you wonder, you know. I did that video on the alive theory and said, you know, maybe they were whisked away to witness protection. I mean, that would be like the best ending of this story that we could have, right? If they really weren't killed, it was just a big hoax to make them disappear. I mean, it would sure answer a lot of questions, but I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just saying that was something I threw out there last year just to see if people, you know, what do you think? You know, what do you think? Don't just assume everything we hear is fact, because not all of it is, as we well know. So I think it's important to keep your eyes open and not just get brought down the rabbit hole over and over again. If you've got a creator that you like, that's all well and good, but you should vary it up a little bit, not get all your information from one place, because, you know, that person could be wrong about something every now and then. I mean, we're just human, you know, and the problem is like most of us creators, we don't have like a room full of interns running leads down. Most of us are doing this by ourselves. And so it's not difficult to have something slip by you just because you're only one person and you can't possibly respond to everything. I mean, just the emails I get alone are hard to even read, let alone answer, you know, just the amount of them that I get, with a lot of theories that are really out there, some of which make me think, and I go, maybe I want to do a video on that one. You know, that's interesting. That's a good idea, you know. So I got a new one that'll be coming out here relatively soon. I was talking with the videographer, Michael Adair. Michael and I work together, or Adaro, I'm sorry. Michael and I work together on some video work with the the Stingray and talking about parallel investigations and all that. He's an interesting guy, and we were chatting the other day, and he threw an idea at me that I thought was really interesting, and we're gonna look into it a little bit more before we roll it out. But it'll be something that I've never heard anybody talk about it, so I'll be anxious to deliver the goods on that one here soon. Yeah, somebody here said Dylan drank enough for 5 people. Yeah, exactly. See, that's where they should have piss tested her or blood tested her. Then they would have known, was she really drunk? Because see, if she would have said that and you tested her and she wasn't, now that's important, right? We know Kathy Mabbitt said toxicology is not important. Well, she's an idiot because it obviously is. Now, Dylan was not a victim, but I'm just saying Bethany should have been examined fully, blood drawn and all, to know absolutely what they were on that night. Because if she's claiming she drank all that and then she's not that drunk at all, then what does that tell you? She's lying. Well, why would you lie about something like that? Well, you would lie about something like that to take the blame away from yourself and just blame it on the alcohol. Oh man, I came home, I was so drunk, I just passed out. I barely even remember anything. And then when she's questioned 3 or 4 different times, every single time she's telling them, I don't know, I don't remember. I don't even know what was real and what was fake. She's got eyes and eyebrows drawn all over the walls of her room. And it seems like a surprise to some people to think that she would somehow come up with that as a distinguishing feature that she saw in the person in the hallway. I mean, you want to talk about a load of nonsense. I think that's a load of nonsense. Just not seeing it. I'm thinking you would identify their eyes more than their eyebrows, especially in a balaclava that's all you're seeing is just that. I mean, I want to know, how did she know it was a male? I mean, if the person was dressed in black in a dark hallway, how would you even know that it was a man? Seriously. I mean, how good are her eyes if she's that drunk? Again, going back to that drunk. Now, if she was a military person on a night maneuver, all keyed up and wide awake, then yeah, they're going to notice all kinds of stuff. But somebody that drunk that staggers up out of bed and opens their hallway door, they're going to notice bushy eyebrows. I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous. And they talked her into it. They were the ones, the police were the ones that were force feeding her the descriptor of the bushy eyebrows. So I don't even believe it at all. Yeah, here Maria Wood also comments that Dylan managed to use her phone though, even though she was that drunk. So yeah, you didn't see a bunch of like drunk texting that you would see from somebody that was that wasted. I mean, it was still in text talk, but it was free of, for the most part, of mistakes. Whereas if she was really drunk, would she have seen that? Or would she have been able to do that? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? See here, Senator Helms 2.0 says, hey, Pete. So I don't know if that's a real senator, but I'm doubting it. I'm doubting it. Let's see here. Yeah, somebody here, Michigan girl, I'm guessing it is, says there won't be enough popcorn for when Dylan takes the stand. I agree. That is going to be captivating TV for sure, right? Yeah, and then somebody else, DW, adds to what she was saying. Creating contacts, deleting videos, taking pictures. How drunk was she? Exactly. I mean, she was doing an awful lot of stuff on that phone. She wasn't just talking to somebody, she was actively using her phone. Yeah, here Max Smith says, I would be real, or I would bet real money that this does not go to trial. And I never bet. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it seems like they're just leading us along and leading us along till all of a sudden we're going to hear one day that it's gone federal, and then we barely hear anything more about it. You know, federal trials are not televised, so it would be easy to do. I think the feds are kind of pulling the strings on this one anyway. So if they did that, then everything would be hush hush and nobody would probably really know what happened. So I hope that doesn't happen. But I hear you though. I think that's a legit. Um, Here, Spaz McGee says, does anyone know what Hunter did with the knife he picked up when he originally entered the house? I wasn't aware that he found a knife when he first went into the house. So does anybody have anything to say about that? Because I'm not familiar with it. Um, so yeah, let me know if anybody heard anything about Hunter finding a knife. But then I hear this other one here, Backwood Beats and Outlaw Rhythms, says Brian's mom wouldn't accept any kind of plea deal. I did see something here. I didn't watch much on it though, where his mom was really like telling him to fight it, telling him to fight it. So I would hope so. Okay, here our friend AR Hayes of Convict's Thoughts. What's up, AR? You madman, you. AR says Hunter went to the kitchen before calling 911 and got a knife. So okay, that makes sense, AR. Thank you. And that's it too. This 911 call. Okay, so now the most recent stuff that's come out here just the other day is that Dylan, when she ran from her second floor bedroom down to the first floor, Bethany's room, that she happened to notice Xana on the floor of her room. So the door had to have been open, and her head was facing the wall, her feet were facing the door. That's all she saw. She assumed she was drunk. So that's where this apparently comes from. So now my question is, so what was the thing on the 911 call that kind of sounded like them like unearthing the scene, opening the door and seeing Xana laying there and all this? So what was that about on the 911 call? Other than some sort of something to make it sound like it was real, you know? It just seems off. Like something's wrong there. Just like, why would they start calling 911 before they knew that there was anything wrong with Xana? And if they knew something was, if Dylan walked by or ran by her room and saw Dylan on the floor and thought she was passed out or whatever, what would she think 8 hours later when she's still passed out? I mean, that would definitely bring this up a few notches rather than, oh, that silly Xana, she likes to sleep. No, we need to find out what's going on with Xana because she's been sleeping for a really long time. Maybe she's gone, you know. So it just, something really stinks about it. So I'd love to see what you guys think. about this. So yeah, the problem I've got with this whole revised thing about Xana being previously seen in the room is where the hell was Ethan? Because this room was really small, like 10 by 10, like a big closet. And you got Ethan in the room, this like 6'4", like big guy laying on the floor in there. I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. I don't understand how you don't see him. Now, maybe from a distance running by, you might not see him that clearly in the dark, but by the next morning, just walking up there by the room, I don't know how in the world you wouldn't see him. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, someone here said, I always wondered why they went outside to call 911. Yeah, the 911 call is really messed up, right? Because normally when you call 911, you're there with the victim, right? And you're holding them, you're doing chest compressions, you're doing whatever you could do to keep them alive. So the fact that they're out there outside means that probably the odor was pretty bad inside. I'm sure it was that many hours later. But they seem somewhat lackadaisical about it. I would think if you're calling 911 after seeing that, you'd be a little bit more frantic on the phone. Now, first they start with this fake sobbing, crying thing, which I think just sounds ridiculous. It sounds real fake. Minus that, there's really no like calamity in their voice or anything like that. It seems pretty calm. And I'm not seeing that with some college kids walking into a room that happened in, you know? So something's off there. Again, everything in this case, there's something off there. There's something that doesn't make any sense. So Meanie is saying that Ethan was between the bed and the wall. It was red outside the wall. Yeah, I know that's what they say. It was red outside the wall, but I'm just not sure why when they called 911, they didn't say how gory it was. Because even the coroner, you know, and a coroner should be pretty jaded from this sort of thing, right? I mean, they've seen some pretty gruesome stuff. But even the coroner said, you know, this was a really bad scene, you know. Somebody who's seen this stuff before wouldn't comment on that like that unless it was pretty bad. So the fact that she brought it up makes me think that, you know, these people should have seen it. I don't know how you wouldn't see it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact that they weren't with the victim when they're calling 911 makes that, even puts a bow around that because it just doesn't add up. All right, here we go. Backyard or backwood beats and outlaw rhythms. This is a person who maybe saw one of my videos where I said this very thing. Says it's almost like they died from something other than a knife attack the way the 911 call went. I agree. I agree with that. And that's why I did a video about it and I caught some grief, which I figured I would. But it was just to throw out an idea that what if these crimes happened much later, like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and then maybe these people were drugged or asphyxiated quietly, and then there wouldn't be a whole bunch of blood there. But yet, why were we hearing about blood? Well, I don't know. Maybe that was to fit this narrative of this crazy psychopath just walking into the house to cause harm. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible, right? But it just doesn't seem to me to hold up. And I think that's why, they didn't, that I don't, that's one of the reasons that I question what was the method of attack. Even though we keep hearing about how bad it was and that Kaylee couldn't even be recognized and all this, I still don't totally believe it. And the reason is because they've lied to us about so many different things. If you've got a spouse or a significant other lying to you repeatedly over and over again about all kinds of stuff, are you going to trust them? No. It's the same thing. You're getting lied to repeatedly by the news, by the, college, these people involved in the story, repeatedly over and over again, either lying or being really shady. You can't help but wonder what else are they telling me that's wrong. I think that's human nature, to be honest with you. Yeah, here Becky Schinrider says law enforcement said they gagged and got sick, but yet no one else mentions that. Yes, I mentioned that in the video too. I said the first thing we heard from Steve G, I think it was, said that it was an overdose. Then it was Kaylee was shot at a party. And then someone else is talking about the overdose thing. It was more than one person. So which one of these is true, we don't know, of course. But it makes you wonder, why do we hear all these different things? Was all of this stuff put together to fool everybody into thinking this was some brutal knife crime when it could have been much quieter, like a 22 in the back of the head of a person that was put to sleep with a pill? That's a lot easier to control. You can't really control walking in on somebody with the machete and you're swinging it and knocking them down and everything else. I mean, yeah, you're going to get the job done, but you're going to make a hell of a lot of noise. And we didn't hear any of that kind of stuff coming from anybody. I mean, this was the night of a home football game. This is a party house, but yet everything is so quiet there. It was as if they knew that this was going to happen. And we've heard that these people in the area were they all knew something was getting ready to happen. And that's certainly messed up. Some really good comments here. Like I said, some of these are repetitive, so I'm kind of skimming through. Yeah, Christina Bowling brings up a good point. Said someone was in a hurry to tell the story too by saying, can I tell you what happened at 4 a.m.? Yeah, that was Dylan, I believe. Yeah, she really was. And that's one of those things, when you watch police body cam videos, or I'm sorry, body language experts and stuff, they talk about this sort of thing. So like on a 911 call, I mean, most people realize what you're doing is you're just getting emergency personnel sent to your house. You're not trying to tell them, the information to solve a crime, because that's not their job. So you start telling them all the facts, and they're working with you because a lot of that stuff is useful, but a lot of it isn't, so you're just, going on and on about something that, maybe doesn't even affect it at all. And so I think that in this case, I'm not seeing it, but I think that, it was one of those things that, you want to get out ahead of it before the cops start talking to you. So I think that's why she threw in the 4 o'clock thing. And then strangely, that became the time, and then everything seemed to be built around that, the cars and the cameras and all that stuff. I'm not believing any of those cars because everyone I've seen is either too blurry or too far away or whatever the case is. You can't really tell. And it was such a popular car. I mean, you had how many thousand of them right there on the campus, and then you got WSU with a parents' weekend, so you got a bunch of people from out of town in, and then you got the axe throwing contest that was going on at the Legion Hall or wherever they did that, and you had all these people in the area that weren't normally there. So that's what makes me think that it was, that those cars were not just one car. I think there were multiple cars. They were just kind of grasping at straws to find a car that matched the description of his. See and hear some back and forth about potentially Ethan overdosing. I hadn't heard that, but it's possible, I guess. Seeing a lot of people in here thinking the police could have been involved in this. I think you're probably right. To some degree, they'd almost have to be. But watch my video I'm putting out later on the Banfield, because I'm going to get into a little bit of that when I'm talking about the Banfield police. Yeah, here Becky Schreider says 4 kids overdosing in a college town definitely wouldn't look good. Yeah, agreed. I think that's a lot of this. I think if you look at most of the reasons why things happen the way they happen is because of money. You've got a university there in Moscow, University of Idaho, brings in a lot of money. And you got a lot of people that, really count on that income coming in, whether it be people working there or, supportive businesses in the town. And a lot of money riding on this getting hushed up quickly. We know there was the big deal they were doing with, who was that? University of Phoenix. It was like a $700 million deal. So people definitely don't want people messing with that. So I think that's, certainly something that, you could see people just, not wanting to be participating in that sort of thing. But on the other hand, some people are really drawn to it, really drawn to it. We got about 10 minutes or so left. This has been a really good live. I haven't really been able to keep track of the people just because I can't see it well. I think we were right around 300, which seems to be about what I usually have in these at one time. But over the course of the whole live, the last one I think I had was 1,200 that watched it for the live version of it. Yeah, Spaz McGee brings up a good point that I've heard brought up quite a bit of the lack of any police vehicles or emergency vehicles being heard on the 911 tape, especially if they were outside. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either, right? I mean, why wouldn't you hear all that? What else was going on in Moscow that was more important than this? That's what I'd love to know. Yeah, make sure you like the video if you could. If you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that. I just passed 12,700 overnight, so I'm approaching 13,000. Still got a long way to go. I'd love to get one of those $100,000 play buttons. That'd be super cool. I know Harsh is supposed to be real close to that. I know Lucky's just under 20,000. So let's keep pushing the different creators out there and pushing them. A.R. Hayes with the Convict's Thoughts. The ones that are really doing good work. AR's got a lot of health issues going on right now, so he's struggling trying to keep that under control and still be active. But you may not hear as much from AR into the future, but he's just trying to get himself better, so that's good. I know I was out for almost 7 months or almost 10 months total. I did come back a couple of times for little short returns, but not much. So it's been nice doing these with you guys again and doing the lives on a regular basis, and wanted to do this one today, even though I was kind of up against the clock, and I hate springing them on you. So I wanted to give you as much notice as I could, but it looks like we still had a pretty good turnout here. But let's see if we got 9 minutes or so left to see if we got any good ones we want to bring up. So Maria Wood brings up the concept that maybe Ethan and Xana were attacked outside. I think it's possible. I know, I've been back and forth on it, because certainly doing something like that outside is huge risky when it comes to witnesses, right? You get somebody that could have been at a house party that was standing outside when you did this, and now they see you. So I don't know about that. I mean, it's intriguing. It definitely gets you thinking, but I'm just not sure about it. I'm not willing to say it's not feasible. I think it's very feasible. And she went on to say Harsh made a video about it today. So be curious to see what he's got to say. And Spaz says A.R. Hayes has a good channel. Yeah, A.R. Hayes has a great channel. He's a former convict that's telling the stories from his perspective. That's great. I think that's a huge plus in the true crime community, to have people that are honest enough to tell you where they come from and that they've redeemed themselves and continually trying to redeem themselves by doing good content and being there for people and all that. So anybody that's, trying to get better themselves should be applauded. Let's see. So yeah, Victorine reminds us all to hit like, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on a replay, drop a comment below. That helps the video get out there to more people, right? Becky, the Goodwig, is asking what crimes did A.R. Hayes commit? I'm not going to get into A.R.'s background. I know he does. So I would suggest go to his channel and see what he's had to say about that, or ask him yourself, because I don't want to comment on what he did. I know it wasn't something like what we're talking about here with this. I can tell you that. But beyond that, I don't want to comment on A.R. Hayes' business. A.R.'s an adult and he's good at defending himself. But he is my friend, and I'll defend him there that he's my friend outside and inside of YouTube, both. All right, guys. Well, I got an hour and a half. That's what I promise on I do a live. We're going to do a members only live. So if you're in the Horns High Club and you're going to bounce over to the other live, I posted in the community tab the link to the other live. So go there. We'll give about 15 minutes to give you a chance to use the restroom or hit some coffee or whatever. And I'll see you there at 5:45 Central here in about 15 minutes. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today in the live. I really had a good time. I hope you did too. I hope I answered or at least brought up a lot of your comments. I tried to do that as much as I could today. And so I hope that helped you in getting your voice out there, as well as talking about something that you wanted to hear me talk about. So, all right. Well, I'll see you in the other chat. This week, I got videos coming, of course, and another chat next weekend. I haven't decided on the day yet, but once I know, I'll let you know. So thank you. Have a good day.